Hello again everyone, hello, and welcome to another Total War, well, Rome 1 Total War. It's Rome Total War. Total War Rome 2 is a completely different game, which I'm not playing at the minute, but yeah. Welcome back to another Rome Total War multiplayer, after-action reporty, replay thingy, where we watch and analyse a battle. At least a battle I fought, and I'm not spoiling if I win or lose, because that's not very nice, and it would probably mean you'd end up leaving if I said if I won or lose. What I can tell you is, this was a rematch battle between me and the host of the game. Actually, I was wrong, it was not the Seleucid I was rematching. I was actually rehosting the person who was playing the Greek cities, and he decided to play as the Seleucids, but he's brought a more infantry-centric build. We didn't really have any particular rules in this battle. We had a moderate amount of money each to play with, but the rule was no elephants and no artillery. But he did choose this very interesting map with a very big hill, and I've chosen Carthage this time around because, well, I need to bloody practice with Carthage, don't I, if anyone's been watching my campaign. But then again, I'm recording this about 2 months ago. Maybe by the point I'm uploading this, I might have actually built my Carthage campaign out of this shit, but yeah, that's a story for another day, or whenever I'm uploading another campaign video. For now, I'm going to quickly walk through my build before we hit the play button, so this is just a 1v1, I can get away with it. On the wings, I have Poeni infantry, 3 units of which, and another 3 units on the other wing. Nice phalanx spear units, much better than the inferior Libyan spearmen and Iberian infantry. Probably the first high-tier infantry unit you can get with Carthage. Pretty good units, and so far, the only time I'd ever used them was in a campaign battle, and I found them to be very, very useful. They were helping me to hold a siege in Carthage, and, well, they didn't really let me down. Well, they did let me down, but they held out for a very long time. I've also got my slingers on the front line. I was using my standard Carthage tactic I use in campaigns, which is to put slingers on the front. Didn't use Balearic slingers because of money. My money was running dry, so the slingers was something of an afterthought, but I do like to bring some ranged units into my armies, and I like using slingers quite a lot. My main line is Sacred Band. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Sacred Band, all in a phalanx formation in a minute. Very, very tough infantry, these guys. Probably one of the best in the game, actually. The Silver Shields and Spartans, I believe, do outrank them, or it might be the Macedonian one, which is better. I'm not quite sure what the ranking it is. Then in my backline, I have 2 units of Iberian infantry. Very inferior sword infantry, especially to the equivalent which the Seleucids have brought, but I just kept these guys in reserve. Thought I could maybe sneak these guys around the flank, just use them for raiding, harassing, just something useful. Sort of like non-cavalry infantry. I just had some denarii left over and I wanted to use it. Also, I have as my general the Sacred Band cavalry, and behind him I have 2 units of Long Shield cavalry. Didn't bring any Sacred Band cavalry this time around. Once more, it was money again playing at me because I had decided to bring 6 units of Sacred Band. So, as for the Seleucid, and I'm going to hit the play button now because I was the one who advanced, he was the one who defended, because I wanted to control this hill because I saw it as a tactical advantage. He's brought a very, very pretty build. On his wings, he's got militia cavalry. In his front line, he's brought Seleucid Silver Shield Legionnaires. And then his main line at the back is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of Silver Shield Pikes, who are either equivalent or better than Sacred Band. I'm going to have to look that up on the wiki, aren't I? He's also brought the inevitable cataphracts, quite a few actually. He's got 4 on this wing and another 4 on this wing. He's got 8 cataphracts, so that was enough to really, really give me some trouble. And this time I'd learned my lesson from the previous battle. I knew he was playing as the Seleucids. That's why I've brought so many Poenis and so many Sacred Bands. Big spear units to try and take them out. Which does mean, yes, maybe I shouldn't have brought Iberian infantry. I should have maybe used Libyan spearmen instead. But I wanted some sword infantry to maybe not exactly go toe-to-toe with the Silver Shield Legionnaires, but they could maybe hold them in place for a little while I got my cavalry around the back of them. But for now, he's sending his militia cavalry as an initial skirmish, initial scouting. We did have a restricted camera on again because the host kind of likes using that. So, and I actually didn't mind using it. I thought it actually added a much more tactical things to my battle. But he did bring his militia cavalry forward. I decided to retreat my skirmishers because I knew I'd just lose my skirmishers in this engagement. It wasn't a good matchup. but it doesn't stop him from loosing off a few javelins anyway. I did manage to loose off a few stones and hurt him. But the Poeni infantries of mine, I was advancing him forward first. I decided if someone's going to take the brunt of the Seleucid cataphract charges, because I was just worried he was just going to bring them all forward and mow me down, I'd leave my weaker units first, let them get hurt. And then once they've taken a bit of a beating, go for a Roman prior present tactic, and then, you know, let my bigger, beefier Sacred Band take over once the Poenis were in there. But instead, he chose to retreat his militia cavalry. It was just a mere scouting force, so I decided to use this time to take control of the hill. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, actually. This was actually a very, well, you can tell here by the time, this was a very long battle. Mainly because it was more about controlling territory than anything. We were both being very cautious. I wasn't trying to rush in, I didn't want to do anything stupid. And I was also retreating a lot because I didn't want to get hurt by his militia cavalry, which he kept bringing forward whenever he saw me coming. But I did want to keep my slingers on the front line because slingers are the way they fire. But I also knew controlling this hill, it was going to give me a big advantage. Managed to just chuck off a few more stones to try and hurt his militia cavalry. Not really getting the results I wanted though because of the gradient of this hill. But he was free to just basically loose some more javelins off and try and hurt my Poenis a little more. But if I could get my Poenis in there, which I haven't really, I've just kind of left them still to just basically tank it. I probably could have chased these guys off, but then again, with them being skirmisher cavalry, it was very likely they'd run off. But my skirmishers did get a decent volley off, managed to start bringing a few of them down, so it wouldn't be long until these guys would probably start routing. However, he didn't take very kindly to me doing this, so he decided to start bringing forward a few of his cataphract. This is where I started getting a little bit scared, thinking, oh my god, this battle's going to end already. He's bringing cataphracts forward, he's bringing 4 units of cataphracts forward nevertheless. But the fact he has 8 of them. So I knew this was where things were going to get serious. He also decided to charge in his melee, well, not his melee cavalry. His militia cavalry did decide to charge in for some reason. I believe it did run out of ammo. They were going to win against my skirmishers, or my slingers to be more accurate, but instead they actually routed. So my slingers actually did very well holding their own, but at this point, I had a big of a shoot. Decided to bring his cataphracts to try and knock out my slingers, make sure I wasn't going to get around and start throwing stones at him, because he was aware that my slingers, from this elevation here, they were going to do a lot of damage to his units. So he just decided to go in. But because I had a lot of spear units in the nearby vicinity, which I could easily move into and still stop him, so I had to pull his cataphracts out before I bogged them down with my spears and start killing them off. Guess he was going to rely on these guys for his victory. Instead, just using them for nasty little charges against weakened foes who can't do a lot about it. So not really the best thing for me, and it started to push my slingers into a rout, like as all Carthaginians inevitably do. Started maneuvering my Poenis around a little bit, trying to get in there. Managed to, nearly got in there actually, didn't quite get in there, but wasn't really paying attention to this unit. I want micromanaging very effectively, and at this point I did manage to get in there. He basically went into my Poeni infantry head on. While it was likely they weren't going to win because they've got their big, lovely crushing maces, I was going to get some damage done, start taking them out. Every one I killed is still a little victory for me. So he did manage to retreat, but I was bringing in even more, just going to try and get these guys clamped down before they were going to escape. Brought in his militia cavalry just to try and buy his cataphracts some time as well, which was something of a little bit of a cowardly move, or not really. I thought it was actually a smart move. He was buying his valuable units time by sacrificing weaker units. But that Poeni infantry did basically get wiped out, and since I'd left my guys to go and chase him off, he managed to get a quick rear charge, but he didn't really commit to it because once they got into an actual fight, he would have lost against the Poenis this time around because they would have been more on their game. Still, he decided to retreat for some reason and cede control of the hill to me. I guess he just wasn't quite committed to a full-on fight just yet. Just wanted to skirmish, do a little initial skirmish, just start wearing my troops down. So while he retreated, I brought my units towards the top of the hill. It's a very, very slow pace. Let's just triple speed this one, actually. So I decided, right, I'll make my front line here. If he's just going to skirmish against me, I'll just make a front line where I can try and stop him. He was just maneuvering his cataphracts around, just planning his next move. I was just going to take over this entire hill, make it my own. Good elevation, which gave me a good defensive bonus, a nice morale bonus as well, because, you know, not only were the flanks secure, we're on top of a hill. That's one of the best places to be, and if he was going to come for me, he was going to be expending a little bit more stamina to try and reach me, especially with those cataphracts. They wear a lot of armor, which does come at the price of them being a little bit sluggish, as well as quite easy to tire. I mean, obviously we're going to be using strong horses, but strong bodies can only lift a lot of weight for so long. Can't do it infinitely now. So I decided to bring my slingers forward a little bit. I was wondering why he was being a little bit slow, wondering why he wasn't coming for me, so I thought I'd use my slingers to try and agitate him. Still got my Sacred Band waiting in the rear, waiting for them to do their thing, but at this point I decided I'll just make an entire front line of Poennies now, and if I need to flank, I will see him coming, so I can just maneuver my units as I saw fit. Kept bringing my slingers down. This was probably the point where it's becoming a little bit of a folly, really. I pretty much isolated these guys, and they were now at the mercy of the cataphracts, which were now on the move, starting to speed up, starting to poke around, trying to look for a way in around the flanks. Militia cavalry were inevitably going to come in for a charge, but I decided I'm going to go for his cataphracts. Chucked a few stones, not exactly the best result in the world, but I actually did take one out with volley, so just from that result, and a few more going down actually, I knew that from this height, my slingers were in a position where they could be extremely powerful. I mean, my slingers were killing cataphracts off just from this distance, so that was actually one of the best things about controlling a hill with my slingers. Just, I could actually start taking out cataphracts from a distance, start sniping them. Obviously, he wasn't going to stand for this. He starts bringing his units up a hill, but me, now realising the absolute value my slingers carried, quickly retreated him behind my lovely spear wall, and I hoped it would put him off coming for me. So I got my units just behind there just in time before the cataphracts caught up, and they broke off their charge, knowing that charging into a big wall of spears wasn't a good idea. However, the militia cavalry were a little bit bold, and, well, they paid the price for it, thinking they could have all the glory. And then to revenge their brothers, they just brought their cataphracts in. My guys, for some reason, decided to give up their phalanx formation. Not sure if I issued them a bad command or if I just done something wrong, but yeah. Knowing that I was about to lose my front line, I started manoeuvring my Sacred Band a little closer to see if I could put the enemy off or just to start offering support. He was starting to bring more units in. I was beginning to move my units forward as well. Not really sure why I was doing that. That was a bit stupid. I really should have just held the line. Tried to hold out against the onslaught of the cataphracts. I more than likely probably would have killed more if I just basically adapted a guarding formation, but instead I just decided to, well, maneuver a bit, which was a bit stupid. But it seems at the same time the Seleucids just weren't very in the mood just for committing to a full fight. They were just skirting around. They were just being very, very, very choosy over their engagements. Just trying to avoid ones which they knew they were going to have casualties. I believe he was just trying to keep his casualties to an absolute minimum. Because I did have a lot of troops at the end of the day, and I did have 6 Sacred Bands to deal with, so you don't want to blow all his cataphracts at once, otherwise a lot of his Silver Shield Legionaries were not going to win against my Sacred Band. That was a pretty done deal. Militia cavalry, they would run out of ammo quickly, they weren't going to win against Sacred Band. And once more, the Silver Shields, my Sacred Band could have probably given them a run for their money. I do believe I had them slightly upgraded as well. And obviously if I'd used good flanking manoeuvres, I probably could have beaten his Silver Shields. And I did also have my Long Shield Cavalry just prowling around somewhere. I've kept them in reserve for a very long time. I knew that bringing in my Long Shield Cavalry at this point of the game just wouldn't really be very effective. I'd be wasting them. Against cataphracts, not a lot of units can win, so I thought the best thing to do is just keep my formation as pure down to spears as possible. Just keep it spears. Keep using spears just to start wearing them down. Couldn't really get an angle for my slingers to use, so a few of my units were beginning to waver, so I just kept trying to make my formations neat, trying to surround the cataphracts really. Didn't want them to escape. Didn't want these hit and run attacks to keep on happening, because that's where I was just getting hurt a lot. But instead he just chose to retreat again. Gave me time to build a new battle line, which was once more maybe a little bit of a folly on the opponent's side this time around. Because when he was hitting me with my cataphract, well, not with my cataphracts, when he was hitting me with his cataphracts, I was obviously being a little bit disorganized, trying to maneuver my Poennies around quickly, but stupidly I wasn't taking them out of phalanx formation, because once more, this was just after the last battle, and like I said, that was my first battle in a long time on multiplayer. And I don't really use phalanxes a lot. I'm not very experienced with them. I didn't really understand that taking units out of phalanx would make them a little bit more maneuverable. So that was my fault. But the enemy at the same time didn't take advantage of this. They didn't take advantage of me being disorganized. And now they've allowed me to basically reach the bottom of the hill. So now, yes, he's on top of the hill. But he lacks missile units, this enemy. He brought no archers at all. He did have his militia cavalry, but at this point they were getting low on ammo. So I was just able to now just move around the map freely. I knew he couldn't have any missile superiority. And if he did charge down the hill and get somehow a bonus to his charge bonus, it wouldn't help. It doesn't help that I record these very late at night, does it? But it wouldn't help him either way, because once more, he'll be charging into a wall of spears in a phalanx formation. It wasn't going to end well for him. But at this point, he'd also decided to move away all his Silver Shield Legionnaires. Not really sure why he did this, because I'm guessing he wanted the phalanx to be his front line, but then he just moves them away and he puts his back to him. And annoyingly, my slingers were a few miles away at the minute, and they were getting tired, so they weren't moving around very fast. But if he turned his backs to me like that, my slingers were here, that would have been a good opportunity for me to start taking out a lot of his phalanxes with just some nice back-of-the-head shots, which would have started to overall bring his numbers down and maybe even begin affecting morale, though that's really living in dreamland. What I did know was I could still win the battle, though I was getting a bit weakened. The cataphract attacks were taking their toll. He taken his toll on me, though, and I'd taken a toll on him. I mean, at the minute there were a fair amount of bodies that were both Carthaginian and Seleucid lying on the battlefield. Some of my units were being left behind as well. Iberians I kept forgetting about as well, so that's why they're so far behind. So once more, a little bit of bad micromanagement from me, but he had lost a fair few cataphracts in this engagement so far. And I was going to bring in my cavalry now. My cavalry was still nice and fresh. Hadn't really done anything so far, so I thought, right, we'll bring these guys in and we'll see what we can do. Maybe we can try and, I don't know, flank around, get around the back of his phalanx, get around the back of his guys. But I did bring my cavalry a little bit too far forward. His cataphract saw the opportunity, and I decided, right, I'm going to have to get out of here. But unfortunately, I just got sucked into the engagement, and that was my general pretty much lost there. Didn't rout, but I brought him back quickly, tried to bring him back to the safety of my spears, and where I could quickly charge in some long shields to try and slow him down. For once more, that was a losing battle. But even if it was a losing battle, it was time for me to try and maneuver some Sacred Band. He saw what I was trying to do though, so he thought, right, he was moving away. Let my long shields live for the minute, even though they'd taken some pretty bad losses. But then morale was actually okay. They weren't exactly happy, and they were chasing down a little bit, even though I really should have told them to stop. But so far, it was still anyone's game. Brought my slingers forward a little bit now, trying to just see if I can get a few more hits. But while the enemy isn't reacting, while they don't really have any missile strength of their own, start just trying to take a few kills. However, this time I'm firing up a hill, so I wasn't really going to get the damage bonus I wanted. I was going to still do some damage, and some of my, yeah, those guys are routed now because, well, they shouldn't really have chased them, but that's my fault. That really isn't their fault. That was my fault. I wasn't micromanaging properly. Decided to commit some of my Sacred Bands though to keeping the cataphracts under control. I knew he wasn't going to engage my Sacred Brand on the front, so I thought, right, if I just keep a unit, trying to just push him around the map a little bit, like some sort of toilet brush or a sweeping broom, I could try and keep his cataphracts policed while I can work down his infantry, get them all wiped out, then deal with cataphracts. But really, this doesn't really sound like a good plan. Cataphracts should be a priority target when playing against the Seleucids, because cataphracts are the strongest target. And if you're going to attack them with a weakened army, even if it's all like spears and stuff, the cataphracts will end up winning. Militia cavalry once more though, they committed suicide, just going for a suicidal charge against my Sacred Band. However, I think he did it to knock my guys off balance, because then he brought his cataphracts in ASAP. But it was still, once more, the militia cavalry were wiped out, but my guys decided to break their phalanx, switch to swords, and I knew that meant I was not going to win. So I brought in my long shields for support, trying to get him around the back, but he sent another unit. Even a small unit of cataphracts can still cause a lot of trouble for me. Even just with a cataphract on his own, it's still a lot of trouble to deal with, so I was just in trouble again. His unit even got promoted in the field. Killed one more of them, but yeah. My efforts to help were stopped. Once more, his cataphracts were allowed to live and continue plaguing me. At this point, my slingers, I don't know why I maneuvered them over here. I think I was just starting to focus entirely on the cataphracts now. I decided I was going to leave his phalanxes alone. Obviously, I was going to try and flank them and start wearing them down, but the cataphracts were just being such a problem for me. I needed to do something. And also move some Sacred Band around here to start to try and attack the silver shields. They'd already let their pillars loose. Didn't really have much of an effect on me. And he just went for a full frontal charge against my Sacred Band. I knew that I would probably win this, but it's saying a defeat is a distinct possibility. But once more, he's committed into charging a phalanx formation, full frontal. That's suicide, basically, so I felt like I could win. It was more or less an even matchup. And he decided to bring his Cataphracts into support, which wasn't really good for me, but didn't really do the best charge in the world, where his general did a very, very mighty leap across my units. But once more, my guys ended up breaking phalanx, went into sword mode, and that was basically enough for him to start breaking my Sacred Band down. However, unlike a lot of Carthaginian units, Sacred Band actually have half decent morale, so these guys actually weren't routing on me. They were really fighting it out till the end, because obviously they're very, very committed to battle. Hope everyone's in my campaign are of the same attitude as well. I haven't recruited any Sacred Band in my campaign yet, but I do mean to. They have very good infantry. But my other lads, they were routing. The Cataphracts had a very fun time chewing them up, but once more, there was still quite a few Cataphract bodies on the ground now. All of my cavalry was pretty much wiped out though, they'd all run off. Now it's just down to my 2 Iberian infantry reserves, who were, well, basically completely and totally useless. They weren't really worth anything. Last of my Poennies had gone in to attack the silver shields. That was a losing battle, where they naturally lost and routed. And he brought his Cataphracts in once more to keep supporting his units, trying to attack my Sacred Band, what was left of my Poennies as well. Over here, the battle had sort of devolved a little bit. We started to move over here for some reason. So I started to pursue them with my Sacred Band, keep that phalanx going. Brought in my general for one last charge, just try and disrupt the enemy before I'd bring in his Cataphracts for another charge, which would have probably broken down my Sacred Band once and for all. However, I knew not to keep committed to a fight, because that's where I would end up losing. So I thought I'd just keep hitting and running, do what the enemy's doing. Hitting and running when your cavalry isn't going to win in a committed fight is the best tactic. Just milk the charge bonus is all you got to do. Milk that charge bonus. But now that I basically had the control of a slightly higher ground as well, I was beginning to win with my Sacred Band. But since I basically lost the rest of my army at this point, I was just surrounded. But yeah, that was good for me.
Was a fool. He sacrificed himself rather than leading his men to a dignified defeat.
Killing the enemy general was a nice little morale booster. Was beginning to break his silver shields down as well. They were beginning to lose their morale. Obviously, losing their general right in front of their eyes wasn't really helping them. It was proving that my Sacred Band weren't exactly screwing around. So I felt like the battle was beginning to turn in my favour, but I knew at this point I had lost. I had made mistakes once more, but at the same time, I think the enemy had made mistakes, and I still feel like it was a good battle, but I needed to improve considerably at this point. But at least I'd learned a few more lessons about using phalanxes, and it was also a good experiment in controlling terrain. I think if I was to replay this battle again, what I would have done was I would have basically kept my slingers on the hill for as long as possible. I would have milked this position for all it's worth. Some of my units did unroute, by the way, but I had not noticed them. I do believe I ended up bringing them back. But what I would have done is I should have just milked this hill for all it's worth. Get my slingers here, just keep smashing away at the Cataphracts, because he would have just kept charging them in, charging them out. I could have probably just killed him if I'd forced him to keep hitting and running just by using my missile units. However, I had lost a lot of my slingers at the beginning of the battle, so what I probably should have done was I should have just taken better care of my slingers overall. But I still felt like I'd played a little more thoughtfully. Even if I'd started to make a lot of mistakes once we basically reached the bottom of the hill, this was where things had just really gone wrong for me. I wasn't committing my infantry properly, I wasn't moving them around properly, my micromanagement just wasn't good, so I knew I had to work on it at that point. So at the end of the day, this was just what was left of my army. Brought them in, tried to charge them about, nothing really good happening. They did bring it, yeah, there goes mine.
Has been killed. This may cause panic in your army.
This pretty much broke my army, like the announcement has so kindly pointed out for us, so My guys were running away. This guy had a little bit of trouble running away. He just sort of got stuck in his own little pocket dimension. But yeah, good for him. The rock was really ruining his pathfinding. That little stone. Was bringing in my last units, but I'm not really the kind of person to rage quit in games. I mean, I'm not really... Actually, this is probably the multiplayer game I get the least ragey at, even though I'm not particularly good at it. I mean, I have had bad battles, and I have had battles where people do play a bit scummy, but I don't really tend to get angry on this game. I just tend to stay around, because I know at least I'll try and get as many kills as I can. Sometimes I'll just go skirmish, sometimes I'll just hit and run. I mean, there was a game that I played last night as a Dacians. I lost very badly because everyone was camping and I was the only one moving about the map. But even then, since I'd brought a nice big healthy contingent of Scythian horse archers, I was very comfortable just moving around the flanks, picking people off with my arrows. So sometimes it's not worth quitting until your army's basically being wiped off the face of the earth. May as well see how many kills you can get. I mean, what's the point of quitting? You're not going back to the campaign map where you're going to watch your obliterated army then get smashed by another 15 enemy armies which have just suddenly appeared in your own stupid province. No, instead, you just lose the battle and then everyone laughs at you, so yeah, smaller penalty to pay. Some of my slingers had come back into the battle, by the way, but we're just chucking more stones at the backs of these cataphracts. Not really having the best effect in the world. Obviously, there was going to be friendly fire factoring in, but I thought, hey, you know what, we're still in the game. See if I can just shoot a few in the back of the head, get a few more kills, because, well, my slingers had performed decently. I mean, I was just happy that I'd actually watched a slinger, and this was a base slinger, but it wasn't a Balearic slinger or anything. I should just take out some cataphracts, so that was a really big achievement for me. At this point, he pretty much thought he'd won as well, but he hadn't realised I had my last few slingers left. So all that was really left for him was just to do one last glory charge against me, but instead he was just a little bit slow. I don't think he'd realised where my slingers were, because once more, we were working off a restricted camera, so he could only see what his units could see. So I don't think he'd noticed me on this hill. So at this point he was just looking around, trying to work out where I was. Obviously he'd soon see, once I'd got a kill, one of his units under attack, taking missile fire. But my guys actually ended up running out of stones at this point, and then they just routed. Yeah, that was a very anticlimactic into a battle. So yes, I did lose again, but I took out a lot of his troops at the end of the day. I did manage to wipe out basically his Silver Shield legionaries. A lot of his cataphracts did die. Some of them died needlessly, others just, well, died. But yeah, I mean, there were once more things to learn from this battle. One, if you are going to do a supporting charge with cataphracts, and you're charging a phalanx unit, you know, trying to support some guys fighting phalanx, maybe don't charge at the front, because one, you're wasting your charge bonus by crashing into your own men. Two, you're charging frontally into a phalanx unit, once more, suicidal. And three, I was open on the flanks. I wasn't really doing a very good job of guarding my flanks in this battle. I mean, I was maneuvering men around, but I was still very, very prone to being flanked, so not really too sure why the enemy wasn't taking advantage of this as much as they could. I'd also learned, be careful with slingers. Slingers can be so useful. I mean, on this hill, yeah. And also, I should have really stayed on the hill. I should have drawn my line in the dirt and had the enemy come to me, but he drew his line in the dirt, and, well, he was hosting, and I just felt, right, fuck it, I'll just go for him. So, well, yeah. Squawker needs to be less aggressive in battles. He needs to play more defensively. He plays better when he's in defense. And also, on top of that, yeah. Overall, some units did do well. Sacred Band overall were the money winners. Some of the Poenis did well in the initial encounters with the cataphracts. Slingers did get a fair few kills as well. Iberians did nothing, and my long shields. Yeah, I didn't use my long shields and my cavalry in general very, very effectively. I just wasted those guys. I should have used them really to help with the silver shields, but obviously the presence of cataphracts just really, really hemorrhaged my use of cavalry. He did have his flanks very effectively policed by the cataphracts. I could not go around the flanks, because if I tried to move any unit away, obviously cataphracts would just come and absolutely murder me. So yeah, he had better flanks and he had the better performance, but at the same time I felt like I'd put in a better performance. I'd had a little bit of fun using higher tier Carthaginian units, which gave me an idea of what they're like. Kind of helped me with my own campaign, because now I knew that Poenis and Sacred Band are something to aim towards in a Carthaginian campaign. But that's why we call it this replay. And there will be more Carthage in this these upcoming replays. I won't be playing as Carthage that much, but there were other people playing as Carthage, and yeah. I believe the next battle, I think it's a siege we're doing next, or it's actually a bridge battle, so that'll be fun to watch. And once more, at least one of these battles I do win. Don't worry, I'm not a big loser on multiplayer. I'm not a pro, but I'm actually somewhere in the middle. I lose games and I win games, but I do play a lot of free-for-all, so I don't tend to win in free-for-all, but that's because I don't camp. I'm a little bit too aggressive in those, but well, we'll see some free-for-all soon. For now, though, that's been another replay, and I hope you've enjoyed. Not the worst result in the world. Did lose, but you know what? I still took out half his army. I'll take that as my little prize. If that was on the campaign map, yeah, I've lost an entire army, but hey, if I was on the offensive, I've knocked out half a Seleucid army, knocked out a lot of cataphracts. They're going to cost a lot of money to replace, aren't they? But yeah. I'll see you all on the next replay, folks. Have a lovely evening.